Hello, everyone. How we all doing? Come on in, settle down. Let's have a bit of a live Q&A today. I'm in the mood for a live Q&A. I want to hear your questions. I want to do my best to try and answer them. I'm not saying I'll have all the answers, not at all, but I want to have a go. As you can see, it's a bit bland around me today. I have this plant. This is the closest thing I can find to any kind of decor at all, because I'm currently in the process of moving house. As you can see, with the gate there, I need to take off the wall. This whole living room has been gutted, and I'm here late at night. It's 20 past 12. I have made a trip down here to first of all, to dump a load of stuff from the new house because we haven't got bins yet into the bins here on this estate. Don't tell anyone. And also to pick a few things up to take back as well. But while I'm here and have the internet, because that's something I also don't have at the new house yet. I thought, why not? Let's do a live stream. Let's talk to the guys. Let's see what's going on. Like I said, I've missed you all. I've been away for 2 weeks. I've been on holiday, and here I am now, back, trying to get my head into the game. I just recorded a video on the way here in the car. It's like a 40-50 minute spiel of me just stream of consciousness thinking out loud about what a wild 2 years it's been, and how I'm noticing a weird change in people lately. I don't know what it is, but I guess to summarize the video, which I'm probably going to release tomorrow or something, just that talk in the car. To summarize it, it's basically me saying, since that thing that happened years ago, couple of years ago, where the whole Earth was, you know, shut down basically over something which we now understand is trivial, and we were lied to about what happened there, and decisions were made which have detrimentally affected not only the economies of civilizations but also the mentality of and the psychology of many peoples. I can't. I'm trying to say it without saying it. I'm not allowed to say what it is I'm talking about with that, especially not on this platform. But I think you know what I mean. After that mass traumatic brainwashing event that happened a few years ago, people have changed. Things just aren't really the same, and people are acting weird. And I made a video about that basically. So that's coming out soon. Um, who's in the chat here? We've got Lucas Williams. Hey, yeah, like I said, and they got the Debs to say no bear. Actually, no bear. No, I don't have the bear. I don't think I have the bear anyway. I haven't seen him in this empty room. No, the bear's gone. The bear's gone, guys. He's at the new house. So hopefully, once I've settled in there, by the end of the month, and we have everything sorted, all the annoying things that come with moving house, flooring, carpets, new furniture you need, new adaptations, all that sort of stuff. Once I'm settled in, we're going to start building an office in our spare room, and I'll have a nice present, like a proper place to do these shows, with a nice background. I'll get a bookshelf up and everything. I even get one of those elongated skulls, you can buy on Etsy of the Paracas skulls. Put that in the background. That'll look pretty cool on it. Maybe I'll paint it in clown makeup just for a laugh. I don't know. But yeah, I hopefully have a proper office set up to do these live shows in. So it won't be just me and my bear, and in a bland corner of the living room. The corner, by the way, is that one over there. I'm spinning around. Normally, I'd be sat in that corner over there on a sofa, but right now it's just a makeshift little setup for my kid when we come round and do a bit of a renovation before the landlord comes. So I'm sat at the opposite wall right now. But what's going on here? What's going on? Who's in the chat? I'm very new to the clown thing. I think I had a spiritual violation conjured by the Royal Order of the Jesters, which means my extended family. It was wildly intrusive, and I'm shaken up, says the wife of his. Well, that's interesting. If you have a story you want to share with me about that, you can always email me at understandingconspiracy@gmail.com, and I'll gladly have a listen to that, and I'll give it a read, and I'll look into it. It's actually the ROJ are actually the worst of the worst. So I'm sorry you've got embroiled and wrapped up in all of that. I'm writing a chapter on them in my book, which is being released very soon. I'm obviously, like I said, I've been away for 2 weeks, currently moving house. The proofreading process is going a lot slower than I would have liked, but I have proofread up to chapter 10, but I've also pre-proofread some of the end chapters already. So I've got about 8 chapters left to proofread, and then I should be able to release the book in the coming month. But there is a chapter on there about the Royal Order of the Jesters, and it's nothing that isn't actually public that I put on there. That's the problem with that group. You can't really find out anything about them. They're a secret society, and they've done a good job, a relatively good job of keeping it that way. But what is in the public are literal FBI records, court case records, settled things now, public things that were posted on public boards online. They've tried their best to expunge the internet of all this stuff, but what is available tells us some very horrible things about that organization, the type of things they get involved with, which I'm probably not even allowed to talk about on this platform without just getting flagged, because it's pretty horrible stuff. But I implore anybody to look into the public record of the ROJ and what happened, what some members were prosecuted of doing, and what came to light and the tactics they use to just utterly destroy people. It's terrifying, and they really are the most corrupt people on the on the earth are members of that society. I will say that for sure. So yeah, the wife of his. Um, if you have any stories you want to tell me, I'm open ears. I'll listen to your stories involving that group. Um, they are. It's really bad. I can't. Like I said, I've written about it. You can read about it when the book's published, but I can't really talk about it like this on this particular platform. Maybe I'll make a video on Rumble about it or something, or do a patron only video. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do like a patron, because my patron's like my platform. They can't do anything. It's hidden anyway. Maybe I'll do a patron only video about that for you guys to watch. And maybe make it public on Patreon so it's not behind a paywall. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll post it on there or something. But I don't think I can talk about them on this one openly, unfortunately. There is what I will say is there is this wonderful woman who I've quoted quite a lot in my book, because she's done some great expose work on the organization. I'm talking like real deep stuff, Let me find it here. The chapter on secret societies, Royal Order of Jesters, and where is it? What's it? I've referenced her books. I'm just trying to find the reference so I can get you guys straight to her book. She's called Sandy Frost, and she wrote a book called Vampires of Charity. And you can get the book easily online for free in many places. I think I paid for it through Amazon or Kindle. It's available for you to read. And she has basically she's been consistently nipping at their heels, just ruining everything for them for years. She's constantly exposing the court cases, and she's mainly focused on the tax avoidance, okay, which is quite clever, because she's hitting them where it hurts, which is the money. Because obviously they claim to be a tax exempt charitable organization, when really what they're doing is pilfering taxpayers' money and spending it on the most heinous and horrible of things. And she's compiled all the evidences to show that they're committing tax fraud on a regular basis. But obviously, spattered within that book about dry taxes, she's also included all the stuff that they're doing on the side as well. And it's a really good book that kind of lays it out. So if you haven't already, give Sandy Frost's book Vampires of Charity a read if you want to deep dive into the behind the scenes dodgy dealings of the ROJ. That's what I'd say. But yeah, the Royal Order of the Jesters are, that being said about the things they've done, which I can't talk about, and which they've been exposed for, and they certainly fit into my theory perfectly. They are of the highest organization, the highest ranks of the organizations of the craft, which is Freemasonry. Um, and you become a 33rd degree Freemason, you can become a Shriner. The Royal Order of I think it's the Arabic Order of the Shrine or something like that. It used to be known before they were known as Shriners International, and once you become high levels of that Arabic themed society, which is odd, you know. But when you actually think about it, it's like based off Islam rather than well, it's kind of like Freemasonry feigns Christianity, and it seems like the Shriners feign Islam, but really it's all just Gnostic Luciferianism, you know. And then once you get through the ranks of shrining, you become a high level Shriner. You can be invited only, only by invite. If you ask, you've lost your chance. But if you're invited, you can be invited to be a jester. It's like, why a clown? Why is a jester the highest rank, you know, in a secret society, revolving around mystery wisdom? So it's because the clown and the jester represents demons, you know, to be the gods, the things they're in communication with, the entities they consider the source of all their power, where they get their things from, the entities they are feeding and fueling and funding and working with and in cahoots with and have the agenda running with, you know, for the corruption of all mankind. Um, then they have considered themselves as humans to be of the highest rank is to become a like the gods, like a jester, a clown, you know, and the plus their irreverence for all things good is obviously symbolically there as well. But it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, what's an Arabic order of shrining? What business do they have, for example, having clowns everywhere? And they're an organization who are obsessed with clowns. They all dress like clowns. They all run the circuses in America as well, which is odd. It's like why the Arabic themed group? Why a Western clown of all things? Why dress like that regularly? It doesn't make any sense, does it? It just seems odd until you realize the Nephilim look like clowns. Clowns are just a caricatured costume that represents a spiritual thing, which is demons. And you wear things like costumes or ritualistic garbs for ceremonies to channel spirits. And so when these mystery wisdom cults, you know, dress in their ritualistic ceremony garb like a clown, they are channeling the spirits that they want to communicate with, which are the Nephilim, you know, the demons, the disembodied spirits. So that it all makes sense when you put it all together, but on the surface, I mean, it just seems like it was something a bit silly for the kids, a bit of fun for the kids, you know, but it's far from it. Not even close, you know, and yeah, I'm hoping the book will be a good expose about that, the first volume, which is coming out. I mean, the first volume is the history of the clown, where the costume comes from, you know, and how you can see there's a vein of Freemasonry running from all the way through. They've always been there, you know, they've been involved with making it popular. And once that ground, and also it's the biblical history of where they definitely come from, and the known history about where we get jesters and clowns from. And then at the end of the book, it's about people's encounters with the spirit realm and encountering jesters and shamanism, and obviously psychedelic drugs and things like that. That's where it ends with. And then that leads on into the next book, which will be all the cultures out there who dress in clownish features, as we would describe them. What they're doing is emulating and copying and trying to channel spirits, you know, and they look like clowns by our Western standards. It's like that's what a clown looks like to us, you know. That's only because a clown to us is silly and stupid and has been hidden and occulted for what it truly is. So when we look at it and say, "Oh, that's funny," they look like a clown. No, no, no. Our clown is modeled after their costumes. We just didn't realize it. We've been lied to about it, you know. And I think a lot of people don't. It's funny. A lot of people get very confused about what I'm talking about. I think they literally think I mean the Nephilim back in the day were walking around, sorry, unicycling around, juggling things and honking their big red noses. So it's kind of like, are you stupid? Do you really think that's what I think? And some people genuinely do think that's what I think, you know, and it's usually a condemnation before investigation. They haven't actually heard the theory out before they say something. It's odd. It's really funny. It's kind of funny. You've got to laugh, haven't you, in a way? So let's catch up with the chat. Let's see what's going on. Let me just take it off top chat and go to live chat. That's the big mistake I always make. I always miss a lot of things. I'm gonna have a quick drink. So yes, it's a late night soda drink, as the Americans would say. Uh, what have we got? So anyway, the wife of his. I hope that little Royal Order of the Jesters thing was good for you. You're not alone. We know what's going on, and if you have any experience, please share it with me. I'd love to hear it. Um, Hi, Paul. Missed you, says the Red Raven. Oh, I missed you too. I've missed you guys. I have, you know. So I did kind of just switch off when I was on holiday. I already had all my videos scheduled to go, just completely unhooked and just enjoyed the holiday. You know, I'm back now and I'm trying to get my head in the game again. We never really get out of it, you know what I mean? But it's a whole different ball game trying to insert yourself back into. I've missed a lot. I've missed a lot of stuff. You end up missing a few things when you stop paying attention. So I'm trying to get myself up to speed. But I'm glad to be back. Uh, talking about Idaho, Missouri, talking about moving house here, I think. Um, Donna York says, "Welcome back. I'm so interested in others' thoughts on the orphans and asylums." Yeah, well, I really appreciate a lot of what Joe has been saying from JC follows JC. Um, he made these shorts which came up on my feed, and I've talked about it within myself in the past on the channel. We've got long talks about the orphan trains, and that's really something that you Americans dealt with more so than British history. British history didn't really have that necessarily, but you Americans do seem to have this thing where there was just parentless children everywhere in like the early 1800s, and it's like, oh, we'll just ship them all over the place, you know, into what seemingly looked like from the photographs empty cities. And it's like all these children are just slaves, they're just factory. Why is every worker in a factory like a toddler or a child? Why are children sweeping out chimneys and doing these horrible, or in the coal mines, like they're all just kids, you know? And then at the same time, you see footage of the same time period or not long after, and there's just full of people wearing suits and like incredibly fine dresses with umbrellas and top hats, and it's kind of like there's a like, so while all these people adults were living in abject luxury, all the children were slaving away in deathly mills. You know, it's kind of such an odd thing, isn't it? And it's one of those things in history because the way he explains it is like what was there like there was like 30,000. I'm making this number up, but it's this astronomical number of insane asylums used to exist in America, and now there's like five or something. Again, plucking a small number out of the air for dramatic comparison. I don't know the specifics, but it's kind of what happened to all the insane asylums? Why do we so the orphanages, should we say? Why don't we need them anymore? Well, are there just no orphans anymore? Like don't exist. It seemed to be there was nothing but orphans at one point, and now there's no orphan. No, we don't need orphanages anymore. Just the odd one, you know, like and just the odd one to make a film like Sister Act or something like that. We don't actually use them anymore, apparently, and maybe the system's changed. It's fostering and all this type of thing now, and there is the system, you know, where children go that aren't necessarily orphanages. But these orphanages as well, they were like castles. Same for insane asylums. There's just a bunch of insane people everywhere and a bunch of orphans all over the place. And the explanation we've come to, you know, what we're theorizing and what he's at a good point of making is, well, if there are all these insane adults locked up, then there are all these children without parents suddenly. Maybe there's a correlation here. Maybe it seems like the numbers add up, you know. There's more children, less adults locked up in insane asylums, more orphans. So two parents, multiple kids get locked away. Multiple kids suddenly need shipping around in trains. So it's kind of maybe the math and the timing all adds up. Could it be that whoever was left after this millennial kingdom ended and Satan's little season fully took over, who remembered a time when Christ ruled on earth, did they all get locked up in insane asylum? They were all full of religious fervor or something. Fully, they've lost their minds, you know, and all their children were then put to work, you know, and many of them probably died in horrible conditions, or maybe I've also theorized because they are the children of people who lived during Christ's reign. Maybe they were like really hardy. Maybe they had like extended life, power, strength, and weren't easily damaged by things we otherwise are today. You know, maybe they had like a longevity to them, which we just can't understand. Which is why they managed to survive working in coal mines and factory work and all these horrible jobs, you know, without really having any issues. Maybe they look like children, but they're actually really old. Maybe they age slower. And you know the adults who were locked up in these insane asylums might have been like a couple of 100 years old. They just looked like they were 30 or 40 or 50, but really they were like 250, 300, 400. Maybe people lived a lot longer during the millennial reign, you know what I mean? Because they were in the presence of Christ on earth, and they were drinking the living waters, and had the healing centers, which maybe were cathedrals, and they lived in this time where they may not have been a perfected and resurrected saint and ruling with Christ, but they certainly got to live in the cities Christ and his saints were ruling. So they may have had some benefits to that. And that tapered off into the 17, 1800s. And the people who were left, these semi immortal like people, were just whisked away, you know, and lobotomized, called insane until they just died. It's like, just die already. Just, like, these guys, the people who took over, like, we just need them gone. We can't have them here anymore. Like, we need to take their children away from them and make them forget too, you know, and we need to separate, or we need to end that narrative so the new enlightenment industrial revolution narrative can begin, you know. A lot of stuff like that seems to something weird happened. And I've just spun a narrative for you there, but it kind of fits. You know, it feels like it fits. It's it's a feeling, it's a gut thing, you know. And that's some of my speculation on the matter, and that's what obviously a lot of other great channels out there have their own theories and ideas, or at least question to that whole thing. Yeah, so good topic. Thanks for bringing it. I like talking about that one. Um, Hope you love your new place. Glad you survived Florida. Yeah, Florida was nice. Florida's it's a tropical land. You know, you can't go wrong with Florida, really, can you? For scenery and weather and entertainment and all that type of thing. Absolutely. I'm glad I survived the roads. I really am. Florida roads are just they're just insane. I can't even explain. I'm glad to be back on British roads anyway. Um, Glad to see you. Glad to be among real people. Much love to you all from Gmore in southeastern Ohio. Thanks for being here, Gmore. I appreciate it. Amelia, thanks for being here. Oblivious M, the new video sounds very interesting. I've also noticed a change in people, extreme OCD being one. Good time to own a cleaning, detailing, landscaping business. Yeah, that's true. There has been a lot of people out there who have heavily started to organize their life, you know, and finally get some flooring in the attic, you know, so they can store stuff up there, or get the decking sorted in the garden. Taking that time to landscape, like you said, or to get their own house in order. And you know, what else are you gonna do when everyone was, you know, otherwise isolated in their homes? Like, what else? I suppose they didn't have time to do anything else, did they? In a sense. So yeah, that makes sense. Just check the chat. Um, Hello there, Paul. Is Jester an entity who accompanies, or is he the bogeyman like Michael Myers? Says Mustafa Adam. Mustafa, I'm trying to. I don't think English is your first language, so I am trying to understand this. Is Jester an entity who accompanies, or is he the bogeyman like Mike Myers? Um, so Jester, I'll just tell you what they are. Okay. Jesters, first of all, were a medieval accompaniment or entertainer, which often was in courtly settings, rich settings, more often than not, a court jester for a king or a queen. And their profession was to provide entertainment and also kind of offer a mirror up to pompous oligarchy and hierarchy, especially the king. So a jester costume is modeled after a king, and a lot of jesters pushed boundaries quite a lot and were allowed to get away with saying things normal people weren't able to say. And that's kind of what jesters are infamous for being. You're the ones who go against societal norms and are allowed to and are accepted to be that way. But some pushed it too far. Some were exiled by the kings and leaders, and brought back in. I think there's a funny one of a British jester who the king he just I don't know he went too far advising the king, and the king banished him and said, "You if you come back, never don't step foot on British soil ever again." I think he said, and he was exiled to France. So he came back anyway, and the king said, "I thought I told you not to come back onto British soil." And he says, "Well, I'm not." And he had French soil in his shoes, so he was actually walking on French soil. Jokes like things like that, you know what I mean? There, because it was so funny, the king let him back in. It's like, "Oh, you rascal," whatever. Join again. Well, one jester, I think maybe the same jester, faked his own death, and at the funeral, the king was sad that he exiled him and was sorry because he was such a good friend. And if I could take it back, I would. And then the jester sprung up and said, "You all heard that? I'm free again. I'm back." So this is what the jesters kind of did. And that. They're just performers. They're just people, and their costumes are nothing more than a king caricature. The crown with the bells and the scepter and all that sort of stuff. The jesters I'm talking about are things people have just called jesters because they look similar to what a jester would look like. But modern day jesters, Poirot style French jesters, are a lot more ghoulish, than just a king. They have the white face with the big wide grin and kind of like a multicolored fractal pattern with like horns. And what people are seeing and describing as jesters are entities in the spirit realm. And a jester is just the only word we have to describe what we're looking at. It looks something like what we call jesters, but it's not a jester. It's not a courtly king jester. That's not what it is. That's just the word we're using to put a label on it because we don't know how else to describe what we're looking at. What you're looking at are Nephilim spirits, the disembodied spirits of creatures. When physical, looked like clowns, as we would use today with our language and words. So, a jester and a clown are pretty close to each other today in terms of looks and attitude and the way they behave. They're not too dissimilar from one another. And the Venetian jesters of Italy, Carnival, are interchangeable with the clowns of the Basler Fastnacht in Switzerland. So it's kind of they're very similar now today, and the lines are blurred between clown and jester today. But in medieval times, they were very distinctive, separate things. And clowns didn't come along till much, much later. But what people see in the spirit realm are entities that have what look like horns, possibly are horns, because these were hybrid creatures. Um, a lot of clowns, like Krusty the Clown, has the hair that comes out to the two sides, doesn't he? For example, or Bozo the Clown had his hair come out to the sides like horns. So it's possible if the hair wasn't shaped like that, it's to mimic horns they may have had, which are a reptile feature. Like think of a dragon. Dragons have horns, don't they? It's possible some Nephilim may have had horns. Not all serpents and reptiles are the same. There's much variety between the species. I think the Nephilim were like that too. A vast variety of looks, all very clownish by our standards, don't get me wrong, but some had horns, some probably didn't. So I do think in disembodied form, you may see some Nephilim creatures with big wide grin smiles, which is a Nephilim feature, serpent mouth, wide jaws, and they may have had horns, which look like a jester's hat to us from our perspective. It's like that's similar to what a jester's hat looks like. So I'm looking at a jester with a big wide grin and this hat on, but it's kind of like it's a language problem. That's not what they're really looking at. They're looking at an entity that just happens to have features akin to that, and that's in spirit form primarily. In spirit form, it seems like they look more like a jester in a tight, multicolored pattern diamond leotard because their skin is just fractal pattern matrix insanity because they don't have a body. They're just like this weird, wavy, psychedelic fractal, forever turning and moving in on itself, machine elf style, fractaled mess. And Jester's costumes are quite fractal in nature. So yeah, you look at that and go, "Oh, look, it looks like a jester," but it's not what it is. That's what his body is. That's just the way it looks. It looks like a serpentine hybrid human monster thing. Because serpents are quite colourful and patterned and insane. And in disembodied form, they're gonna mirror something they look like in the physical realm, but something far more just out there and nuts. So in the physical realm, they probably look like brutish, pale skin, big lipped monsters with long tongues and bulging eyeballs and fangs sticking out, with perhaps horns and wild, crazy red hair, and they would look like a clown, like a nuts, terrifying, fanged clown to us now. But when they died and went into the spirit realm, those features became more forever moving in a toroidal fractal pattern. So so it came more like a jesterish look than a clownish look. And that's it. But the same creatures. I'm talking about the same things. There's just a once physical form and a now disembodied form. The once physical is more clown-like. The now disembodied form appears to be more jester-like. So I hope that answers your question, the Mustafa. That's pretty much what they are. And they are the spirits that possess cause problems, seek to kill and destroy, and just cause. They are the possessing entities. If that's what you mean by a company. But in terms of bogeyman like Mike Myers, they don't manifest physically. That's like a murderer, unless you count somebody being fully taken over and possessed and being controlled by the demon as the demon manifesting physically. You could say that's a classification of that. But in terms of that, I wouldn't. I'd say the true entity just suddenly being there and doing stuff physically is an impossibility until the technology catches up. And I do think there's agendas at play to make them back here somehow. But they'll likely just give them a robot body to do it with instead of a flesh body or something like that. But that's an agenda for a whole other time, isn't it? That's a whole other topic. Let's keep going on. Anything more going on with the blip up at the North Pole that seems to be moving more northerly every year? I haven't looked into it, but last I checked, it was on its way to Siberia. Um, I heard something today that really disturbed me, says G Moore. With all the info, we have to use discernment, but a channel I like, but they think we are in hell. This is it. Okay, so some people think we are in hell. It's not true, says Scotty. Um, I don't think so. Paul did a video a while ago. It shows up as something on the radar creeping towards the North Pole, the camp of saints, possibly. Yeah, well, on the radar thing, it shows wind patterns. There is this odd thing in the center in the North Pole, which looks like a circle in which the wind hits and it causes a stream, a line. So there's like a hard, solid object that's so large in the North Pole, it literally disrupts the wind. Okay, so it shows up on the map, which is odd because even mountains don't tend not to do that. They're very, very tall, so there's something in the sky disrupting wind patterns, which is round and large, but it's not large enough that it covers like a third of the Earth or something like that. But it's big enough. It's clearly like 20 miles wide or something like that. It's odd. And so there is that at true north. But then there's a magnetic North Pole that moves and has been moving from the northern coasts of Canada across to the shores of Siberia on the North Pole region. And that's been moving rapidly over the past like 20 years. Faster, it's getting faster. And it will eventually, if trajectory's there, it'll either do a loop back round again and make like a figure of eight shape, maybe, or it's going to keep going and go over Siberia, and whatever it is, if the magnetic pole is a visible thing, if it is a city, a floating city, it's going to become visible because people live in Siberia. They'll see it, there it is over our land now. It's no longer just at the in the center of a supposed icy, watery tundra. Now it's actually over land. So time will tell with that one. If a giant, enormous floating city suddenly does become visible over Siberia, and the media can no longer hide it and say it's not there because there's too many eyewitnesses and it's physically over cities now. It's kind of like, yep, there it is. Everyone, phones are on it. The internet's aghast with it. Then they'll play the alien invasion card, and they'll probably go like, look, a mothership has just appeared out of nowhere, and it's for some reason gone to Siberia. They must be working with the Russians or something. I don't know what I don't know. Make note now, but they'll probably play the card and go, no way. Where did that come from? Oh, I had no idea. This has just come out of nowhere, guys. They'll spin some stupid narrative and act shocked and surprised, but they were expecting Jesus to rock up at any moment. They were expecting that. I assume, if this is how it plays out, and that they've been preparing the world for an alien invasion for like over 100 years now. With media, and people are just waiting for aliens. They can't wait for the aliens to invade because it means something's going to happen finally from the mundane drudgery of existence. And yeah, so that's probably how that's going to go down if that blip keeps moving. It'd be interesting to see how it pans out. Um, but I love speculating about how the alien invasion, if it was actually Jesus coming, would go down. I could write the book on that story, I think, and make it an interesting read. It'd be a fun read, wouldn't it? As sci-fi, possibly reality, possibly our future reality sci-fi. in a less sci-fi manner, more a religious, spiritual sci-fi manner. It'd be a weird book, wouldn't it? But I'm clearly left up to a lot of wild speculation here. Like that's what it comes down to. I'd have to speculate a lot. You have to figure this one out. I can't guarantee anything I'm saying is true whatsoever. I have no idea. But if that ship did just rock over Siberia, I could see it coming. I see all the news saying, "Alert! News alert! A huge mothership has just appeared out of nowhere, and we're awaiting responses to find out what it wants from us." And then I reckon he'll do nothing. He'll just sit there because it's Jesus. He's not here to like wipe everyone out. He's just there waiting for Satan to make his move. It's like a "come at me, bro" type of thing, isn't it? I'm here, Campus Saints, right here. Gather your army and come make war with me. Come do it. It's written. This is how it's gonna go down. You've been preparing for this moment. Take your best shot. You said you could handle it. Here we go. Do it. Go for it. Um, it's something like that. It'll taunt it. So what Satan will likely do in that scenario to gather his army, to have his stab at it all, he would probably attack the Earth with his own flying saucers and genetically modified monsters, which he's created, which are probably inhabited by the Nephilim spirits now. I don't know. He's made new bodies for the Nephilim spirits to inhabit again or something. And then it'll look like the alien spaceship, the mothership. This is the narrative he's spinning, but it'll look like the floating city that just appeared is suddenly attacking Earth with its flying saucers and alien monsters. But it's not. It never sent them at all. It did nothing. It just simply hovered over Siberia a little bit. But Satan would release his army of monsters and technology to convince us. So maybe Blue Beam will come into play, and all the holographic technology and drones and all this sort of thing will all come into play at once to make it look like this sudden appearance of this city is now attacking us. The mothership is attacking. It's independent. It's Independence Day. They're coming for us this time, and that will make humanity drop all their differences and come together to fight an alien threat from outer space. We've all heard that, haven't we, before? So that's how I see it going down. So I imagine they would play that card. They'd have to convince us we're under attack by aliens when Jesus rocks up, and that's what the programming has been. You know it. You know what I'm talking about. This is what they've been prepping us for. Like this is what all the programming is for. This is what the inundation for alien media has been all about. The video games, the movies, the books, all of it. This is what the whole lie of heliocentrism is all about. This is what the denial of true biblical cosmology is all about. It can't be an enclosed system if it's aliens. Okay, it has to be a vast infinite space with millions and billions and billions and billions upon trillions of infinite planets available for life out there to come and find us. It has to be infinite space. It can't be enclosed if we want to spin the alien story. Every agenda suddenly clips into place when you play out this narrative. And you can see it, can't you? You can see this narrative at play. And it might be while Jesus is still just chilling there. um, During this battle that's going down, Lucifer will then release, Satan will then release his savior to defeat the evil aliens, spaceships, and monsters he released. It's a double bluff. And it'll look like we've defeated the aliens on the ground thanks to this superhero savior. And everyone will bow down and worship this thing as a god. And obviously, this thing will claim this new savior, this antichrist, will claim, "I'm going to make a treaty with with the mothership. I'm going to bring peace to the earth, and maybe that's how thing's going to go down. I don't know." Um, and then he'll come back with the bad news of there is no peace. This thing only wants war. It comes to destroy the earth. We're gonna have to fight. You know. And maybe that's what happens. Maybe that's how he gathers his army. And all of humanity comes together. All the world's armies come together. Which is what maybe that's what Gog and Magog symbolically represents, if not giants. It means civilizations' armies. All the armies of the earth will get together. All the technology they've made, all the lasers systems, all the frequency systems, all the hidden technology we don't understand, all of it will all band together, all the missiles, whatever, and they'll just go nuts at this spaceship altogether. From every corner of the earth, just all weapons aimed at once, fire. And maybe that's how fire comes down from heaven and just destroys everything, as it said in Revelation. Maybe that's how that goes down. It's kind of the when you're in an enclosed system, maybe that much firepower just bounces back for all we know, especially if you're using directed energy weapons. I don't know. I don't know, and then the earth just burns up because of it. Maybe that's how it all ends, and then it's final great white throne judgment at the end of time, prophecy fulfilled, in a true physical sense. Like what I'm saying here is very physical, isn't it? And I know there's a lot of people out there who think, oh, well, it's all spiritual, or it's a bit of both. You can't be take it too literally. It's more symbolic here and there. And I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I've heard it all. I've been listening to a lot of people talk about it from different angles, and a lot of people say it's all already happened, and we're way, way, way after it all. We're living in, I guess, the new heaven and earth already, or um, Revelation is just a perpetual cycle thing that's always happening forever and ever. I don't know. People seem to have all sorts of views about it. But if you want to go off just a purely literal interpretation, then what I'm saying here is a speculative end game scenario. That's all I'm doing. It's just a speculative end game scenario based on the Book of Revelation and what we know about conspiracy and the agendas at play. Does the story I just told sound right? Does it sound like it could possibly go down that way? Let me know now if that makes sense to anybody. But I do enjoy imagining the many ways they could play that card, the alien invasion card, and they're gonna play it, guys. It's going to, whether you like it or not, it is going to get played one way or the other. Uh, Sorry, guys, the chat just jumped. Wow, I missed a lot. I've missed a lot of comments. Sorry, guys. Let me just scroll it up. Drunk Wedding Photographer, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Stop noticing and asking questions. Yeah. Um, have you ever watched the Narnia series or read the books? It seems to me they were written in such a way that it could be understood as millennium being past tense then, but future coming for us. Interesting. I mean, C.S. Lewis is an interesting writer. I've read his Space Trilogy series, um, which again is is promoting the wrong cosmology as far as I'm concerned. But the story was interesting because it was about heavenly realms and what it means to meet to encounter God in a sense, and the effects that can have on people, and also what it means for evil as well on Earth. It's an odd tale and story wrapped up in a simple love story mixed with a overarching theme of a cult that gets developed because one man encounters the Garden of Eden, walks with God in a sense. So it's very odd. C.S. Lewis is an interesting writer. The Screw Tape Letters was very interesting. How the Devil Works, he wrote about that. He was a strong Christian. C.S. Lewis was a strong Christian, but uh, he was a man of his time, I suppose, and he was close with Tolkien as well. And even Tolkien's work does seem to have echoes of like a millennial, of a time when things were different when an elite class of advanced humans, we'll call them elves, ruled over the earth or Middle Earth as it's called there. Um, and then had to suddenly leave. And that was the end of magic. It's kind of if you want to say it's Nephilim stories they're talking about, that's how most people have interpreted it in the past. But maybe now we're talking maybe in the light of the Millennial Kingdom. I probably have to reread a lot of these old stories and tales, and Narnia being one of them from C.S. Lewis's stories. But it's been years since I've watched that, to be honest. So I'd have to rewatch it with new eyes now and see what I missed from this perspective, certainly. But I wouldn't surprise me if Lewis knew something and put it into his books in a you know hidden in plain sight fashion, or maybe as an attempt to let people know. Because I think he seems sincere in his faith, and he wrote some amazing works on trying to communicate Christianity to the public. He had his own radio show where he did I think a weekly show trying to explain Christianity and um, give the arguments against the arguments. So it was interesting. I respect his work, but I don't. I take everything with a pinch of salt. I always have. Thoughts on Lloyd De Jong's channel? Says Michael. Um, Turn up your volume. Are you ever going to give up the little season theory and move on? Okay, Michael, I don't think you like the Millennial Kingdom theory and just want me to stop talking about it, right? Is that what you're saying? Well, I'm going to keep talking about it. It has legs. I'm not saying everything's all figured out, but there's more than enough evidence to show that yes, something nuts has gone down here. And biblically speaking, how can we square this and still make the Bible true? Well, let's look to Revelation 20. It says there would be a kingdom that reigns for 1,000 years that ends, and then Satan has a little season after that. There's a beginning and an end of 1,000 year reign of Christ. So to say why would you just pack up shop and leave away? Well, don't ask me. It's in the book. That's what it says happens. So let's just go by the word of God here and see where it leads us. That's all I'm saying. So Michael, take your attitude elsewhere. In terms of Lloyd De Jong, I think he's an Anglican, but he does some great research against Gnosticism, which I enjoy. And I've had him on the channel. I've had a chat with him. That's as far as our relationship really goes, and I'm open to talking to anybody of all sorts of denominations and beliefs. I'm not dogmatic myself. It doesn't matter to me. You may not agree with everything he does or his style or what he does, but he does some great work against Gnosticism. That's all I can say. Um, so let's go back to the chat, see what other people have said. Um, the founding fathers just found old buildings, says Annie. Yes, definitely. There's millions of orphans in Africa. Oh, that's sad. If you didn't go along to get along, they took your kids and threw you in the insane asylum. That's right. Orphan population was roughly twice that of adults. Parents locked up to re-educate, kids taken in, redistributed to work. Yeah, sad times. Paul, what is your estimate of when the millennial reign ended? I'm thinking the late 1700s. Well, by our calendar standards, something like that. Yeah, 1600s, 1700s. But I don't think it was a sudden end. I think it was more of a transition in a sense. And there, I think there was like an odd tapering off and then a sudden end. I don't think it was sudden. I think it like went down a little bit and then went off the deep end. Maybe like they said, the 1800s was when the full whiteboard clean happened and a historical reset took place where they rewrote all the history. Prior to that, I think it was more of a when the Enlightenment kicked in, so late 1600s, I think it was around that time. Um, that's when the Dark Ages ended, you know. So there's something to be said for that. But what year we're actually in, I couldn't say. We just call it. We're just calling this time the 1700s. But what year that actually was, I don't know. By an official standard, depends how you want to measure time. Are we going to continue to measure time by the Gregorian calendar on this? It's like it's hard to say, isn't it? And like I said, there are many calendars out there, and with different events documented on their own timelines. And chronologists have done many great jobs of trying to align these calendars together, and they're finding similar events have happened that are supposedly should be separated by thousands of years, but aren't. They're right next to each other. So like there's something afoot. There's I try not to swear then, but there's everything's messed up. Okay. Um, but yes, by our standards, it seems like maybe 200 to 300, maybe 400 years ago is when the little season kind of began to sort of begin. But I don't think we can put a date on it as this day. This is when it happened. I don't think there is a day necessarily where it began. I think it was a slow beginning. Um, it's possible the millennial reign ended, but there was a period of time before Satan was released and then started to take over. So it might not have been an instant ends, Satan released, right next to each other moment. Right, hand literally, here's the bat and go. I don't think that's what happened exactly. It could have been that people may have lived for a while without Christ physically reigning, and then maybe as time went on, Satan was released. He subtly began to just weave his way into society and people's minds again and take over again, you know, slowly without people noticing. The greatest trick he's ever pulled was making people think it didn't exist, you know. So I don't think he would have come out all guns blazing. Here I am, I'm back, I'm ruling now. Look at me, everybody. I don't think that's how it would have gone down. He uses his secret societies and those who follow him in secret to do his work for him, so no one ever realizes he's actually there, you know. And that could have taken years, centuries before he established himself fully, you know. It's possible the 1,000 year reign happened, and then maybe when Jesus left, there was a dark age period where Christendom was strong, but it was a pretty brutal, horrible time to be alive because Christ wasn't around necessarily, you know. And as the further away people got from Christ being there and leaving, the more people forgot and things started to break down, and then again, Satan takes over. You know, I don't know. Like, and maybe it would seem like a real enlightenment did actually kick off after a while of Jesus not being there. Maybe things did get pretty bad when Jesus left, and then science saved everybody. Satan saved everybody. It's that type of thing. Like, again, I'm wildly speculating here, but what I can say is our timeline it's wrong. It's wrong. It's just not. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever with the mainstream narrative of what they've told us about any event in history ever. But we do seem to have solid records, I would say, of like the 1600s onwards. And we can start tracing heritages pretty consistently to that time period if you look hard enough. It does start to get really blurry and messed up past that point. It's really hard. I had to look into a lot of genealogies for the book. And once you get past like the mid 1700s, it's a mess. You have no idea who's related to who. It's all guesswork by that point. So if anyone ever tells you, well, I know exactly where all my heritage comes from for thousands of years, I'm actually gonna say I'm gonna call bullshit on that. I think you do. You think you know all of that. But there were multiple people with the same names having like 20 children during those times, just hoping some of them survived. It was a really weird time, okay? And everyone always named their children the father's name, and then there was like 20 Richards in one family, and you do not track that type of thing easily. You really don't. The lines get seriously blurred, and you're putting a lot of trust into the record keepers of the time as well to get the names right, the times and places right. But it's all done by hand, and it's not what you think it is. Um, but they would love you to believe you can fully trace your heritage all the way back for thousands of years, and it's kind of, I don't think so. I don't think so. Especially if the history's a lie anyway. You physically actually can't do that because of whatever happened with the millennial reign. Um, Sorry guys, just reading the chat here, see if I can catch up with what's going on. This is season, not just a theory. Um, Tesla, they had to hide the branch of physics Tesla was exploring that would lead to free, clean energy for a more controlled system of energy where labor and money are exchanged and companies can be built. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Ether energy is definitely probably still exists, but I think it was its strongest at an earlier date. Um, but yeah, it's there's definitely a way to make free energy in this world. The way we do it is highly inefficient and only benefits those who have access to the resources. That's true. They're trying to fix the pole shift. Okay. Thank you for this chat. What are your thoughts on who we are, when we are, and our place as Christians in light of this little season? I've had many theories and speculations on this. If you watch my first videos on this, it's literally called "Who Are We If the Millennial Kingdom Theory is True?" And I don't have an answer for that. We could be the descendants of those who lived through the millennial reign. We could be possibly the rest of the dead resurrected from Sheol, living one more time for a chance to know Christ and accept Christ as a living entity going through the trials and tribulations of existence. And that's not endless reincarnation. It's literally you come back in until you've reached an age where you can consciously make the decision. So children, for example, don't, and I don't know how that works either. I don't know if the children just have a shot if they die while innocent that they're in is done. Possibly, I don't, I don't believe children um, are penalized by God just because they die before having a chance to speak or think. As us, I don't think it works like that. I think God's a just God, but that has problems, because there is that argument it's appointed for a man to die once and then judgment, but it's possible when that was written, people did die once and judgment was given. Christ gave a judgment and he resurrected the saints, Abraham's bosom, and his judgment was, okay, the rest of you, I'm coming back for you later. That was the judgment. And now things could be different for all we know. Now, because if you think about it, it was all written for a certain people of the time, not for a future generation 2,000 years later. Then maybe that was already fulfilled, and you have to now look at it with from a new perspective that the judgment was already made, and now we're living under a new judgment system, a new promise, where he basically says the rest of the dead will be resurrected uh, after the first resurrection, which are the saints, who are the rest of the dead, you know, and that comes before the millennial reign. Not sure, but does it come after? I don't. Yeah, I think it becomes. I think it comes just after. Those who take part in the first resurrection get to reign with Christ for 1,000 years, and then once it ends, Satan's released for a little season. So it doesn't say those who take part in the second resurrection get to rule with Christ and reign with Christ and live with Christ. It doesn't say that, does it? It says those who take part in the first resurrection get to rule with Christ. So the rest of the dead who are resurrected after, I assume, is after those who got to reign with Christ for 1,000 years. That's just logically, chronologically looking at it, it seems that way. So we could be all of us, every one of us who's been birthed into this earth since that time has been a soul that lived once. We are the rest of the dead. This could explain this whole past life phenomena people claim to experience. It could explain these things where people feel like they've been here before. This odd, uncanny feeling that I've been someone else before, and maybe we've come back in a different body to what we used to look like. Maybe we've come back in a carbon copy body. Maybe the body isn't important. Maybe the body is just a way of experiencing the world, and it's maybe I did I maybe if the, I if I am one of the resurrected dead, just speculating, if I am, I may not have looked like this. I could have been a different race for all I know. I don't know. And when I think about it, that kind of reminds me of is it Altered Carbon, a TV show where people can just keep coming back into bodies called sleeves, and it doesn't matter what race or you're compatible with any type of body of any race, skin color, or gender. It doesn't matter. You can come back as anything. And is that like another tongue-in-cheek reference hint to how it works for us? Like, and I'm not saying endless reincarnation. I think reincarnation religions think that way because of the situation where God has appointed it that there is a resurrection. And maybe Satan's trick was to make people think it's the infinite loop of resurrections, when the truth is it's just two. Those who get to take part in the first resurrection, those who get to take part in the rest of the dead resurrection. And then once it's all done, final judgments at the end of time. All living and dead get judged by that point. It's all done. It's game over. End of time. And then there's a new heaven and new earth. And I don't know if that just means the earth we have currently is rejuvenated and put back into its original form, because it is said that the earth will endure forever and ever and ever and ever. And biblically speaking, the earth never ends. There is no end of the world. Technically, it's an eternal thing in God's eyes. So the new heaven and new earth, I assume, is a new sky and new plane, which will just be rejuvenated from the old. It'll be like I don't want to say a phoenix rising from the ashes, because it's quite an occult way of describing it, but it can kind of is this way of shedding off all the old corruption and getting rid of it, just shaking it up so all the chaff falls off and we have a brand new thing again. It's like a fully renovated as new earth as it was before it got fully destroyed and excavated and turned into this cesspit we live in now type of thing, infested with demons. Maybe it's like a full parasite cleanse for the earth. All the demons get washed out, you know what I mean, and taken out of the system, out of the pipe work of reality in that spirit realm, the astral realm of the earth. Again, it's hard to say. Good questions, by the way, guys. And again, all I can do is think and try and figure it out. Who are we? I have ideas, you know. Um, we could be just simply just a continuation of the descendants of those who came before us. Um, Now, that doesn't answer the question of, I know my body came from them, But what about the soul? What about the essence of me? The thing that the mind, soul, spirit thing that is embodied. Like where does that come from? And is it possible we've already been here in some other form, perhaps? I don't know. And maybe our lives are designed for us perfectly to put us through the trials that we're supposed to go through, to like a refiner's fire in a way, the tribulations ourselves to get us to the point where we see it and we can make a sound judgment, you know, at the end of it all. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's fun to think about though, but fundamentally, the gospel doesn't change. Okay, just get covered by Christ. That's kind of all that matters. Accept the free gift of eternal life and salvation. Um, your speculations about it or your work about it or because of it isn't the thing that gets you in the end. It's just what he did, and be thankful he did it and accept that gift. You know, um, that's all it really comes down to. I'm not trying to. I don't want to diminish that at all. Whether we've lived through the 1,000 years or not, or whether we get to, or it's too late, it doesn't matter. All that matters is getting to the end, getting through the end of it all after death. Um, it's like Ecclesiastes. What profits a man for all his work labored under the sun? It's all vanity at the end of the day. It doesn't matter. These things are temporary. They come and go. And what has been will be again. It's an endless cycle for humanity, and in the end, kind of. We'll always be doomed to make the same mistakes. Nations will always rise and fall, and men and women will always be born, age, and die. And it's fleeting here. So keep your eyes on the eternal prize, I suppose. And the only way to claim it is to take the free gift of salvation and that offer that was given to us, because Jesus conquered death. It's that simple. He's done the work. He's done it all for you, and your works mean nothing. He's already done it all. So humble yourself to that and accept that gift. And naturally, by doing so, you will feel more inclined to do better. To do better, you know. My throat's getting a bit dry, so I'm gonna put some ice in my mouth while I read some comments for a second. Right. 4Funk says, if we have any historical writings from Josephus, Eusebius, Tacitus, etc., referring to the tribulation of events, why do you think there wouldn't be more, or that those references would exist? Well, I think there are plenty of evidences and references out there that do exist beyond the early writers and historians like Josephus. Even Josephus did write about a war in heaven occurring. We don't necessarily actually really know how long a tribulation period lasts for, or what that looks like. Only glimpses through symbolic messages in the books. And I think a full tribulation event all over the earth may have taken 100 or so years, and I think a lot of people living during those times may not have known that's what was happening to them, and may have documented it in a sense where it just seemed like natural disasters or something else. So we have to re-examine historical events through this lens and see if it fits to the historical narrative of the millennial reign. But I also think that a lot of history has been hidden as well, and you have to remember books are written on paper that degrades quickly, faster than you think, especially the quality of paper they had then. And a lot of books and documentations didn't survive time, just the passage of time. And that's again the fleeting nature of reality, unfortunately, and the law of entropy. Everything's in a constant state of decay at all times. Which, by the way, completely debunks evolution. But that's neither here nor there. Um, yeah, books get old, and moth and worms and mold and damp and time just turns everything to dust. You know, so I'm not saying maybe the works that did survive, great, but many of the works probably just didn't survive. Not all those books would have got copies. You know, not all the, not some may not have time. You know, and what few copies did exist can get lost in the annals of time. And also, many of them were probably stolen and hidden from us and put into vaults just to hide that history. You know, it might have been that a lot of this stuff was readily available up until only 300, 400 years ago. When you have a a worldwide um, secret society effort against humanity, it might not be that difficult to coordinate an attack on history and remove enough information that people can't piece together the story. But there's limits to what people can get away with. Like I said, I don't think they managed to get the Bible out because there's just too many copies all over the place to get rid of the Bible. But we can get rid of other books, obscure history books, so people can be confused about where they are in the narrative of the Bible, at least. And I believe that's probably what's happened. But we can get glimpses. Go back and just research and read books, and you find there's glimpses of something. You know, they can't get rid of everything. Um, but yeah, there's just a few thoughts on the idea that I'm humbled to have been forgiven and given mercy and grace, and to know we are loved so very much. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Again, it really is one of those things that I know many people really struggle to understand and accept or want to accept. A lot of people want to say they got there themselves, or they did it themselves, or something they did is what got them there. And they can go to God and say, "But wasn't I a good person? You know, didn't I do all these great things? You know?" And it's like, I never knew you. You never came to me. You never accepted what I had to offer. Like you didn't. Like, and your works aren't as great as you think they are. That's what it'll come down to. It'll be like, yeah, I know you thought all that was really great, um, but it doesn't unfortunately excuse all the sins you committed in between. You know, and you're either under the law, which you'll fail at, or you can be under grace and take the free gift I've offered you to not fall victim and to suffer the consequences of the law. Two choices, you know. And he knows this is the problem with that law. Everyone will fail. No one will win. Like everyone will fall short severely, especially today. And it's kind of God doesn't want everyone to just perish and die and fall into sin and and evil and destruction. You know, and so he offers his way through his son, and it's a simple choice really, and it's tough. It's a tough one because, like I said, a lot of people want to say, "Well, I did it my way," you know, and I suppose that's the problem with humanity. Always has been the problem with humanity. That's kind of what we do, isn't it? That's how we are. That's how we are. That's our pride speaking, you know, our vanity. It's kind of no, no. I did it my way. I didn't want. I don't want help. Don't help me. I'll do it myself. You know, like a toddler. Like I have a 2-year-old, you know, and he's 2.5. So you know that I watch him and I watch his nature, his rage build up sometimes over things, you know. I can see his little mind and body trying to work out these complicated emotions and feelings for the first time. And you let them feel it, you know, you let them get through it. But one thing I found is this desire, this need to do it himself. Can't help him with things. He could be struggling, crying, screaming with anger and rage that he can't do this simple thing. Like climb up onto a toilet seat, for example, you know, just something trivial and simple, or open a straw wrapper for its carton of juice, just stuff like that, you know. And you watch them struggle, he's screaming, he's like angry that he can't do this, and he's frustrated, And you say, "Oh, let me just do it." He's like, "No, I'm going to do it." And that's kind of what that's kind of how God views us. We're like children to him. We're like toddlers to God from his perspective, struggling and screaming and crying over our salvation that we think we can get there ourselves, or we're going to do it through our things, and we're going to make everything perfect. We're going to fix all the problems. We're going to do all these. And it's like, God's like, can I help? Will you let me help you a little bit? And a lot of people are like, no, I'm going to do it. Me, I need to do it. And I kind of see it, it's maybe I think being a parent gives you this perspective. It's you see things from a new perspective, because it's kind of you're watching life grow from infancy into adulthood, and it's kind of you see the motions. And this is the thing, like we all grow up eventually, though, and we'll all, as you get older, you learn to accept help. So I think I find um, the obstinance is a younger generation problem, for good reason, because that's just what we're like. And maybe that's fine, because, like I said, maybe it comes down to a man must persist in his folly before he can become wise. This is why God gives you over to a reprobate mind, so you can learn why it's bad to have a reprobate mind. So it's like, all right, go and do it then, and then when you're done, come back. And I'll be here with open arms. That's kind of what God's like with us. Is like, you want to do all these sins, you want to go out there and make your life misery, go and do it. I'm not going to stop you. Free will, do what you want to do. And when you've learned your lesson and you realize all that glitters isn't gold and it's not what it's cracked up to be, and the world is corrupt and the devil's out there purposely trying to make your life misery and hell, while here, just once you've dropped it all and realize it's all vanity and pointless and you need a connection with me, I'll be here. That's kind of what God is doing for us. That's kind of how I've interpreted it. That seems to be how it is. And when you do finally get down on your knees and humbly, legitimately say, okay, I'll do it your way. Show me just show me, please, what I need to do, what's going on. Things will happen. Doors will start opening. Your heart will change. Your desires will change. Things will change rapidly. Your life will start to get better quickly. It might seem slow, but in comparison to the rest of your life, it was quite a short period of time. People expect it instantly, like now. And perhaps your interpretation of what it means for things to get better might not be what you expected. It isn't suddenly a new car comes your way and a flashy new home or whatever. It might be the fact of like your addictions and your desires change, and simple things start to change in your life, which eventually amounts up to big things and lead to better things. It's stuff changes, and it takes time to get there. I'm empathetic with people over Christianity. I get it. I get why it's tough, because it's even a toddler has that nature built into them of denial of help. And I think it takes a long time for a human being to grow up and get out of that mindset. It does. It's tough, you know. And I think, especially if you weren't raised in Christianity, or never were never taught these things, it might take you longer, and you might end up learning the hard way, like me, like I had to. But I never had anybody to show me any of this stuff. And for the years I lived in the world fully and was a worldly person. That's a good way to describe it. Um, yeah, it's left scars. I'll say that. But as I grow as a person, those scars get smaller. That's kind of how it goes. But they never leave. They're there as a reminder, I suppose. And I'm talking about spiritual scars, by the way, not just physical, although those exist too. Um, Talking about Mandela effect here, are we? Sorry, guys, I missed the chat, and it's kind of what you guys are talking about. The Cult of Con is here. Hi, man. It's good to see you. Thanks for the donation, by the way. That was really great. Your name will get put in the book as a thank you. That's what GoFundMe is now. Any donation, any amount by anybody, if you haven't made yourself anonymous, you get to go in the book as a thank you, as an acknowledgement. Your name will go in there. So that's what the GoFundMe is still available for, and obviously because you've donated, I think it was $10 or something, or £10. I'll pop your name in the book as well as a special thank you, the Cult of Con. So I really appreciate that. I never realized how savage comment sections are on videos. Oh yeah, yeah. I read them, but I try to. I rarely react anymore. I just take it all in stride and move on. Um, you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful with the comment sections on YouTube. It gets wild out there sometimes, absolutely, especially in the live shows. But the live shows are fun because it's an interaction. It's a conversation at the end of the day, isn't it? We're trying to talk with you guys rather than at you guys. Uh, Today they just get parents addicted to drugs and then take their children away so they can traffic them and abuse them and use them in rituals. That's sad reality, unfortunately. That stuff still goes on. Um, how are the statues that seem pagan explained away? No graven image and whatnot. Thank you. I enjoy your work. Well, these buildings have been around for a long time, and so's corrupt humanity along with the millennial reign. So again, I think we don't have to be so what's the word, consecutive with the timeline. Like, so Christ is 1,000 years, it ends, and then Satan appears instantly and takes over. There may have been a cool off period in between where things were built and added that were not of Christ's nature. It's possible these original buildings in their true form didn't have any images on them. They were just pure geometry. It's possible, and things were added at a much later date. We don't know. But that is also not to be said that art can still exist. I believe even in Christ's reign, art can still exist. You know, um, it depends about what the graven image is for. Are you making an image to worship it, or are you making an image to remember something? You know, I, as a former artist, I guess I still am an artist myself. I have an art degree. That's what my degree is in. I don't think all art is pure evil or creativity is evil. God is a creator, and we are made in his image. So you can't just condemn every image because it makes you feel uncomfortable. Unfortunately, it just that's just not life. And as beautiful as nature is, you know, what man can create can add to the beauty because it's a gift given to us by God to do, have the ability to do. But if you're making a false god with the intention of that graven image to worship it, then you've got a problem, haven't you? But it's how puritanical do you want to get with that concept? You have to ask yourself that. You got to be reasonable, be a human being about it. Please, like, think for a second. And but I think a lot of the demonic stuff was probably added at a later date. And the official narrative intention for gargoyles is that the outside world is a cruel, bitter, dark place, but inside the cathedral is beauty and warmth, and you're closer to God. And I think symbolically, there's something for that. You know, um, you can't just say, okay, demon on building, therefore all building evil. It's like it's very reductive, isn't it? It's not. That's just not how people in reality works, necessarily. Um, but again, I don't think it's possible. A lot of these buildings, again, were defaced afterwards, and stuff was added. Or, or alternatively, another theory I've had is that a lot of these buildings were actually built way before the Millennial Reign by the Fourth Beast system, the Fourth Beast, which was diverse and unlike any other system beast that had come before it, a civilization, possibly Rome, this may be describing. And these were all built, and then the Millennial Reign started, and these buildings were taken away from the kings and given to the saints. So they may look like that because they weren't built by Christ, but they were repurposed by Christ for his millennial reign. And that's why they have these things on them. And then in 1,000 years, they may not have seen it necessary to get rid of the images because it's kind of like, well, we know Christ is really right there. We know they're the bad guys. It doesn't matter anymore. Let them serve as a reminder and let the kings see their buildings and their kingdoms that they built being used for Christ's kingdom instead. Let them watch, it's that type of thing. I don't know. Again, I haven't got a definitive answer for any of this, but if you think about it just for a little bit, you can come up with an answer quite easily. A logical answer, and with a little help from what it says in Scripture as well. The genealogy thing is a joke. They want you to send your DNA, which is really stupid, and then they tell that you had a relative that came over in the Mayflower, and everyone says, "Wow." Maybe in America they'd have a tough time of selling that in the UK. By the way, guys, Cult of Con, I did recommend him at the end of my last video. Um, I like listening to the guy talk. He's just one of those voices that you could just listen to for a while. And he's like me. He just talks and thinks and speculates about stuff. Um, so yeah, go check out his channel if you haven't already. I'm basically Amish at this point. I got angry at jet planes this week. um, so we're talking about the Mandela effect here, are we? Of crush his head and bruise his heel. Is that what we're talking about? Do you have an explanation for the ancient pagan buildings of Asia, such as Vietnam, Thailand, India? These seem to be impossible for humans to have constructed. Now, it depends what technology those humans had access to at the time, but it does seem like a lot of these temples were just carved out of one giant piece of stone. A lot of these temples, and I don't think they were actually temples originally. I think a lot of them were actually like power plants and technology and cathodes and diodes and all that sort of thing. And we just look at them now and think temple or building, when it's more likely an antenna for ether energy harvesting. We don't know the type of technology these people were using to make these things, but it does certainly seem like they served more of a function and just had a Eastern Asian aesthetic applied to them. But I find it interesting that some of the shapes you see in these Asian Taiwanese temples, like the Myanmar temples, for example, which is just miles upon miles of just looking out at temple points all over the place. And you realize the patterns have been copied in Europe, just in a more European fashion, but the shapes are the same because they serve the purpose of harnessing energy the same. So that's probably my explanation. It's just every culture has their own artistic flourish to do the same thing. And that's a method I've applied to my own research in the Nephilim looking like clowns. Every culture has a representation of the Nephilim and all incorporate a clownish like feature. But there's always a cultural specific artistic flourish to all of it, and that's the same with each culture that's lived through the millennial reign, no doubt, and was likely building these type of things. So there you go. That's my answer to that one. All right, guys. I am getting tired. It's 10 to 2 in the morning. It's 2 a.m. for me. This was a late one. Again, I have a video for you guys in the evening tomorrow, which I recorded earlier on the drive over, talking about people have changed. And I've noticed a lot of change in people, especially since what happened 2 years ago. And I'll release that tomorrow as a chat. It's gonna be about 50 minutes long or something like that. Like I said, I'm in the middle of moving house. I'm in an empty house. If you've joined late and you don't know, this is where I used to live. Just cleaning it up with the landlord, and I've come to pick up some extra things. So I'm a very busy guy. Like I've been on holiday, come back, hit the ground running, moved house. I was driving a van over the past couple of days, and yeah, it's just been all over the place. So this is what I'm doing right now. Whenever I can, I don't have the internet at my new house until the 28th. So what's that? 2 days from now, and that's if they even do it on the 28th. We'll see. So whenever I can get here is when I'll do the uploading and all the editing and stuff like that, guys. But I'm gonna leave it now. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this little Q&A. I thought it was fun. I think we talked about a lot of things. Take it easy, guys. I'll speak to you soon. Make sure to check out Patreon if you haven't already. Or if you want to donate to the book, you can always go to the GoFundMe, which is all linked down below. Any amount will get you a special thank you in the book. But yeah, guys, I'll be back soon. Thanks for listening, and as always, God bless.